Hello, my name is Rabbi Michael Gold. I'm the author of the book, Three Creation Stories. This is a summary of some of the ideas in that book. My book, Three Creation Stories, is subtitled A Rabbi Encounters the Universe. It is at least this rabbi's search to answer the fundamental question, what is reality? There are three tools at our disposal for our search, and we will need all three: science, philosophy, and religion. So let's begin with science. Our search for reality begins with science, but some people believe that science is the only source of truth. Science is limited. Science begins by looking at data about the universe, and creating a hypothesis which fits that data. Then it tests the hypothesis based on more data. Science is empirical. The traditional view is that science seeks to verify the hypothesis. However, philosopher of science Karl Popper taught that true science must seek a hypothesis that is falsifiable. Science never leads to absolute truth, but hypotheses which can either be verified or, at least according to Popper, falsified. Historian of science Thomas Kuhn, in his book The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, wrote that scientists work within a paradigm or worldview. On a regular basis, there is a paradigm shift. Kuhn invented that phrase. Historically, Ptolemy's astronomy gave way to Copernicus. Newton's physics gave way to Einstein. Lamarck's evolutionary theory gave way to Darwin, although today Lamarck is coming back among some biologists. Science works in paradigms, and those paradigms work for a period of time, but it can never lead to absolute truth. There's another issue regarding science that deeply divides both scientists and philosophers. Does science describe what is really out there in the universe, or does science merely describe how experiments will work? Let's look at realism versus instrumentalism. Realism is the view that what we learn from our scientific experiments really exists in the universe. Albert Einstein was a realist. He could not accept quantum theory because it predicted phenomena that he taught cannot be real. There must be some unknown hidden variables we have yet to discover. Instrumentalism is a view that our scientific experiments do not necessarily reflect reality. In fact, we cannot know reality. The philosopher Immanuel Kant taught we cannot know the real, the noumenal world, only the world of our mind, the phenomenal world. The great Danish theoretician of quantum theory, Niels Bohr, was an instrumentalist. We can only know what our experiments say, not what is really out there. Einstein and Bohr argued about this their entire lives. Science has taught us an amazing amount about the universe, but there are questions that science has not answered and may not ever answer. One such question at the heart of Three Creation Stories is, what is consciousness? Where does mind exist in the universe? To begin to answer that question, we need to move beyond science. We need to study philosophy. Perhaps the greatest philosopher in history, Aristotle, wrote a book about physics and another book called Beyond Physics, literally metaphysics. Metaphysics is a branch of philosophy that asks the question, what is reality? Unlike science, which is dependent on empirical data, metaphysics comes to answers through rational dialogue. My own definition of philosophy is rational discourse about ultimate questions. Philosophy. In science, knowledge comes through empirical data, hypotheses, and experiments. In philosophy, knowledge comes through rational discourse. Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that deals with what is reality. Let us explore one problem in metaphysics. What is the role of mind or consciousness in the universe? There are three different answers given by metaphysics: dualism, materialism, and idealism. Dualism teaches that the universe is made of two totally different substances, mind and matter, or body and spirit. The roots of dualism go back to Plato, who spoke of a changing material world and a perfect world of the forms. The most influential modern philosopher of dualism was René Descartes, who famously taught, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. To Descartes, matter is res extensa, an extended thing that takes up space. Mind is res cogitans, a thinking thing. Matter works by the laws of physics. Mind has free will. They are two separate things, but how do they interact with one another? How do mind and matter interact? This is a dilemma for philosophers. Descartes taught they were connected through the pineal gland, but that has been proven false. Philosopher Gottfried Leibniz spoke of a pre-established harmony. Mind and matter work together because God causes them to do so. But to call on God to answer questions we cannot answer is known as God of the gaps and is rejected by most thinkers. Today, dualism is rejected by most philosophers and almost all scientists. British philosopher Gilbert Ryle called the belief in dualism the ghost in the machine. He taught that it is nonsense to describe the soul in a body as a ghost in a machine. Nonetheless, the Western religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all teach dualism. Materialism. Materialism teaches that the universe is made up of one substance, matter. The universe is simply bits of stuff acted on by various forces. That matter has no consciousness. The roots of materialism go back to the Greek thinkers Lucretius and Democritus. Some would say materialism grew out of Aristotle's belief that there is no world of the forms, just the empirical world. The French mathematician Simon-Pierre Laplace taught that if there was a powerful demon who knew the location and velocity of every particle in the universe, that demon could predict the entire future and retrodict the entire past of the universe. Most contemporary philosophers and scientists are materialists. The universe is simply matter in motion. However, this raises some serious questions. The biggest, how does consciousness emerge from matter in motion? How can mind grow out of a collection of mindless molecules? Another question, at what level of complexity does consciousness emerge? Descartes believed only humans are conscious, animals are mere machines. Most of us believe our dogs and cats have minds. What about birds, fish, insects, bacteria? Philosopher David Chalmers taught that consciousness exists all the way down. Philosopher William James suggested one of the most popular answers in his essay, Does Consciousness Exist? Mind is not a substance, but a function. The heart's function is to pump blood. The brain's function is to create mind. Mind is not a thing. It's something the brain does. Idealism. Like materialism, idealism teaches that there is only one substance in the universe, but that substance is mind. Everything is mind. This idea has its roots in mysticism, both in the East and in the West. In ancient Greece, the pagan thinker Plotinus taught that the universe flowed out of the one like a brook flows out of a spring. The one can be seen as a universal mind. In Western philosophy, the most influential idealist was the Irish bishop, George Berkeley. He taught that to exist is to be perceived. Items exist only in a mind, including the mind of God. Samuel Johnson once kicked a stone, felt the pain in his foot, and said, I disprove Berkeley thus. But he did not disprove him. The pain he felt was in his mind. It is tempting to reject idealism. Everything is mind is a silly idea, but thinkers as varied as Gottfried Leibniz, Immanuel Kant, George Hegel, and Alfred North Whitehead built their philosophical systems on idealism and the centrality of mind. There is a very old philosophical idea called panpsychism that teaches that mind permeates everything. Even some scientists are starting to consider the validity of that idea. One reason philosophers are taking idealism more seriously is the great mystery created by modern quantum theory. For example, is light a particle or a wave? The answer is yes or no. It can be either, but only when a conscious mind measures it. Is Schrodinger's cat dead or alive? Both, until a conscious mind looks at it. Quantum theory has made the role of mind central to the universe once again. Metaphysics gave us three possibilities regarding the presence of mind in the universe. Dualism teaches that the mind is totally separate substance from the body. From a religious perspective, God created minds or souls and placed them in bodies. When we die, our bodies disintegrate, but our souls return to God. Materialism teaches that mind is simply the function of the body, or in particular the brain. It is like the software that causes the hardware to run, but has no real existence outside of hardware. When we die, we simply cease to exist. Idealism teaches that mind existed first and literally flowed into the world. Everything is part of that mind. Mind is similar to the Hindu idea of Brahman, or ultimate reality. Hinduism teaches that Atman, our individual souls, are part of Brahman. Religion. Like science and philosophy, religion seeks answers to ultimate questions. But science uses empirical knowledge and hypotheses, and philosophy uses rational discourse. Religion uses sacred scripture and authority. According to many traditions, that sacred scripture is open to interpretation. Judaism teaches that every verse of the Torah has 70 interpretations. We will explore the first verses of Genesis through three very different interpretations. The important point before we begin is that Genesis is not science. It is mythos, a narrative that is not literally true, but teaches profound truths about the universe. What does Genesis teach us? First creation story from the King James Bible. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and all-powerful God created a universe outside God's self. It is creatio ex nihilo, creation from nothing. God created matter, formed human bodies out of the dust of the earth, and breathed a living soul into those humans. God intervenes in the world, performs miracles, and answers prayers. This approach leads to dualism. This approach, taught by Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, goes by the name classical theism. Nonetheless, classical theism opens many questions. Perhaps the most difficult: why would God create a world with so much suffering? Second creation story. This is the Jewish Publication Society's translation of the beginning of Genesis. At the beginning of God's creation of the heaven and the earth, when the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered upon the face of the water, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Before God takes any action, before God says, "Let there be light," primordial water already exists. In the Bible, water represents chaos. The creation story is not about creation from nothing. Rather, it is about the movement from chaos to order. This is probably the more authentic meaning of Genesis. The scientific story of the Big Bang is also about moving from chaos to order. This approach is closest to materialism. The third creation story from the Zohar, the book of Jewish mysticism. Quote, "With wisdom, something unknowable created God, who is the heaven and the earth." It is a strange translation of the beginning of Genesis. God is not the creator, rather the creation. Some unknowable reality, what mystics call Ein Sof, flowed into everything. If God is primordial mind, then there is mind in everything. This is closest to idealism. Three interpretations of Genesis. The first leads to dualism and the classic theism of the great Western religions. The second leads to materialism and the worldview of most contemporary scientists and philosophers. The third leads to idealism and the worldview of the great Eastern religions and most mystics. Which is correct? That is what my book, Three Creation Stories, will explore.